Well, thanks for having me. But in a nutshell, it's going to be, love what you do what you love. I get the chance to talk to hundreds and hundreds of outfitters, people in the industry as well. Growing up as a kid, seeing this industry and always I wanted to be a part of it in some way. It was just something I really fell into, right? And so when you do love what you do and do what you love, right, you really buy into it. Okay. You really believe what you're doing is making a difference. And when you get to see that into fruition, it's the greatest feeling in the world. It's not like we're selling a generic, insurance where you just meet anybody random off the street. It's you're meeting people that are involved with something that really means a lot to you. And so with that being said, some of the people I get to meet that are started off as clients end up being some of the best relationships I've had, in my short life so far. And it means it's just, that's what means the most. And then when you have a team that can actually provide what you're selling, that's the difference maker. I mean, I don't care what other industry you're in. If your team can actually be behind you and you know that what you say is going to be how it goes, there's no real selling involved, right? It's really just, how do I get to meet you? Where are you at? And let's try to put you somewhere that's going to set you up for success, right? It's not a, hey, please come on here and let me sell everything to you. Like, I want you to try all these products. Like, we've all been in those. When you get in a demo with me, it's, hey man, where are you at? What are your goals, right? Is this for your generations? Is this a legacy play, right? Are you going to give this down the road? We're setting up people's families for generations over time, or maybe a possible sell. But at the end of the day, it's all about the community, right? I know you hear a lot of people say that, but it's so true. And it reigns true in this industry. It's what this industry was built off of, was, word of mouth almost, right? We always joke around in the office, there's a grapevine. Right? I get to know a lot of things about a lot of people just through good people and relationships built over time. But man, it really just comes back to, I know I've said it probably 3 times already, but it's really love what you do what you love. And from there, it's in God's hands and it's in your hands and it's in your team's hands. And I believe in every single one of those aspects of my life. And I think that's where the greatness, is instilled and continues to be where we are going forward.
Yeah, no, I think that was all great points. And I want to touch on like that, do what you love, like where that came from. But first off, let's just introduce you. So this is our VP of Sales here at Mallard Bay, Peyton Huval. Dude, I'm excited to have you on. And of course, joined by Logan Moe, the CEO and founder of Mallard Bay. So today we're going to be diving into just kind of Peyton's life. Again, he gets to meet and talk with so many different outfitters and sportsmen, and he has a team that he leads with excellence. And so, yeah, let's just dive more into those details and what it's like in the day-to-day with you. But first, I want to get to know you more, let everyone else get to know you more. So Peyton, I just want to hear about your upbringing. I know you have a very interesting upbringing. You're super into the outdoors growing up, but I want everyone else to kind of hear about that.
Yeah, I would be what you would call a mutt, right? I've lived in a few different places. I've gotten to have a lot of different experiences. I think that attributes to the way I go about my own business and my character. I think that's really developed who I am, right? I've gotten to see a lot of, different sides of people's views, gotten to talk with a lot of different people and be in positions where I'm the new kid on the block. I have to understand who these people are. So, I was born in Beaumont, Texas, lived there for a brief time. My dad was a 18-wheeler driver starting out and got to see his story where he progressed into being the head of sales at his company now. And, that's where that all started, where, I got to really see the difference between someone coming up from the bottom and really getting to progress throughout the years. And to me, I would not change that for the world. Once my dad, Hurricane Rita hit, and I think it was 2003, Logan may know a little bit better than me, but I think it was 2003. And, we had some friends in Austin, Texas, back old school Austin, Texas, in West Texas, and or west of it. And, moved there. I moved there in first grade. And it was a culture shock. It was not a good old Beaumont, right? It was definitely a different place, but it wasn't what it is now. It was still that old school town. There was no street lights where I grew up, which was outside of Austin, and no street lights. It was very rustic country, but growing up in Beaumont and East Texas, it's all about fishing and ducks, right? But moving to Austin is what developed my love for whitetail, right? So moving to whitetail was just the coolest thing for me. There's one guy who's really dear to my heart is Mark Norsha. He was, the dad of one of my sister's friends, and he had a deer lease and brought me out there when I was little. I was asking for, snake boots from my dad for Christmas and finally got one. And that's where that started there. But the upbringing itself was, it was different. Being a kid from East Texas going into a much bigger school system, a much harder school system in some aspects. But then, growing up was not always rainbows and butterflies like for most people. Everyone likes to sugarcoat those things, but it was tough. But we stuck together as a family, right? And I resonate that a lot with outfitters. A lot of them are family-owned businesses. They really want to grow themselves, grow with their family, and do what they love, right? And so seeing my dad be able to do it, and his story is really great. I've learned a lot from him. There's always that saying that kids might not understand what's happening, but you'd be surprised what we pick up on growing up, right? And my upbringing with that is kind of the way I think is. I had, my dad was a very stern guy. He's very old school, right? He's from Louisiana, grew up in a small town, also moved a lot, got to see his dad, start businesses, and then they would go down and then ups and downs, but, very intelligent without being like the college PhD intelligent, right? Which I think we can all resonate here with, but he had the grit. Grit was something that was instilled from me to the beginning, but my superheroes weren't necessarily like, Batman, Superman. It was, the guys on Bone Collector on the Outdoor Channel, or, hey, this guy started this business doing this. He started with one trash can business and now it developed in something great. That's where my business mindset really came from, was being in that, because with my dad being old school, it was not really a hug it out, kiss each other on the cheek. Oh, how's it going? Like, it was a stern handshake. This is how this world works. This is what you're doing. This is what we're going to accomplish. If you're going to do something, you better not quit. You're going to finish it out, which I respect the heck out of that. I wouldn't want to change that any other way. I think it brought me to be the man I am now.
I believe they call that tough love.
Tough love. Wouldn't change it.
I honestly wanted to touch on the part where Peyton and I actually met. He went to school in Austin until you were a junior in high school. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So, and then he moved to Lake Charles, Louisiana, which is where I had moved to from Dallas when I was about 12. Small Catholic school, obviously big culture shock coming from the huge public school systems in Texas. Definitely bonded over being on the football team together. And Wyatt was my first friend when I moved to Louisiana, and now he's a co-founder here. And Peyton was Wyatt was Peyton's first friend as well. So we always connected over that. And
there's a reason why Wyatt is in corporate relations and industry relations. He's that guy that did his hand out. He's a blessing to have, for sure.
Yeah. And so Peyton was Wyatt's roommate in college. And so whenever the time Mallard Bay was starting, like very early, Peyton was the closest guy to us that, had the ability to be personable, but also, maybe not had years and years of sales experience, but he learned from his dad growing up and absorbed all of those things and, really became, what he is today because of the ability for him to be coachable. And overall, him embracing that coachability aspect was what made him such a great, first hire for us. Right. There's an internal debate about who the first hire was, whatever. I'm not going to get involved in that, but one or two of the first hire. And, we were all just, in a small office at that point. So, Peyton's been here since the very beginning, and, thank him enough for, what we've gotten to, the point we've gotten to today. And there's so much more room to grow.
Absolutely.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. And so, Peyton, were you about to say something?
I was going to touch on, that's the part I left out, was after Austin moved to Lake Charles, my uncle was, diagnosed with cancer. It was real bad shape. It was time to get back to family. And so we moved. I had the chance to stay in Austin and finish out my high school years. But, man, you never want to break up a family. You got to show that your dad is there. Like, you got to show your family that you're there for them, through thick and thin. You got to do what you got to do. But, moving to Lake Charles was definitely a different experience. But it was still felt like family, right? On vacations, that's where we would go to. We go visit my family. All my family's from there, from Lafayette, Bow Bridge, all around Louisiana, off I-10 basically. And when I did get to meet Wyatt, that's when I started getting to meet Logan a little bit. We met through mutual friends. And like Logan mentioned, we were very similar points when he moved from where he's from, but really didn't have a close relationship until we got to college. I was grinding away. I've always had a job. I've always been known to be kind of a workaholic. I feel right when I'm at work. Like it's something I control. It's something I'd like to do. I get in that routine. And I will say, when your buddies in college go, hey man, we're starting a business, you're always kind of like, all right, what's this going to be? Right.
Yeah.
Not knowing who was steering the ship, right. Which is Logan. And, he came from a great background. I'm sure guys listening to this podcast has heard that spiel, but, it was different. It did take a few, talks and discussions of let's jump ship and from what I was doing. And I thought I was going to go a totally different route, but I'm just so blessed that they were able to talk me into coming on, and I wouldn't change that for the world.
What were you doing?
Yeah, that's what I was about to ask. What were you doing before it?
Man, dad being dad or parents being parents, right? Went into it. I guess I can argue pretty well, I guess you would say. So I was did 2 years of finance, thought I was going to do that route, then really felt really home at like pre-law, like law and legal systems. I loved being able to negotiate and talk, but the more and more I did it and the more I saw what these guys were doing was the more I understood that you're selling a story. Selling to me, it made more sense and felt better because you can actually put emotion behind it, right? It's not just here's the objection. It's you get to learn who these people are. You're doing a lot more good than just, pushing a bunch of pencils every day and researching and just having to say what you need to say for some other company. I have the ability to say what I mean and mean what I say.
He was a bartender at a country club.
And that's what I was going to ask. What were you doing for work?
College job. Okay. For work.
Yeah.
Work. I was everything from a cart boy. I always stayed in country clubs, right? The reason why was for connections to develop those relationships.
Yeah.
Right. And so I wanted to get in front of those guys' eyes because, a college job is very rarely going to come into a career. So I wanted something that could probably pave a way for me for when I do get out of college. Right. And tendon bar at night, like the, Cody Jinks song. And that was my life for probably 5-6 years in college. And I loved it. I loved the people I worked with. Shout out to Baton Rouge Country Club. Those guys are really awesome people over there. I will say, like they teach you how to talk to other men. They understand that guys are just not. It was easier to learn how to be approachable, right? And how to approach people like that. And it's just really good. Like, I mean, if you're starting out anywhere and have no idea what you want to do, in really retrospect, I really didn't know what I wanted to do at that point. I didn't know who I was at that point. And that really was eye-opening to see the different types of professionals in their careers and understand who you kind of resonate more with and what you think you could see yourself doing. So I would say that was almost as important than anything else I've done in my life, was working a job like that, but staying disciplined, right? Going from a big program like in football and baseball, I always played sports. It just gives you that discipline to do something every day. And I know if I didn't have a job or was working, I would probably be a couch potato and do nothing. And that's just, it's just not who I am. Right.
So you said that it took multiple conversations for you to give up bartending to come to Mallard Bay. Why was that?
Man, again, it's, your buddies come in college, right? In your senior year, and they're like, hey, we're going to start this. And I love the idea. And I'd always hear Wyatt talking about it, right? Those patio talks. We were those kids that would, we didn't always have to go raging in parties and stuff. We were just good old boys who like to sit on the patio, have a few drinks, cook. I like to cook a lot. So I'd always be on the grill and we're just BSing pretty much, watching the game. And you'd keep hearing a little bit more about it. You're like, dude, that'd be like my dream job, right? Like I loved hunting. I loved fishing. I loved the outdoors and never really knew how to get into it. And that was my chance. And, it was hesitant because I was making decent money as a college kid.
Had that tip money.
At the bar, at the country club too. So.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I was working full-time hours when I was supposed to be part-time. It was addicting, right? But the thing is you start hearing about it and you start resonating with guys that have similar or like-minded as you are and really want to turn this into something real. And it took a few conversations from Wyatt, but really it really took Logan stepping in and said, hey man, like this is how this is going to be. This is what we're doing here. This is who I am. And I didn't know Logan on a personal level that well. We were just more mutual friends. And I got to know who Logan was, right? Who was going to be the guy who's steering this ship. And that was the biggest buy-in I've ever had was, I remember there was this one specific moment, which was pretty much when I gave him the yes, was we were in his truck and it was just him and I. And him and I at that point have never ridden in a truck by ourselves, just him and I. And I was starting to kind of go to the office a little bit more, kind of get my toes wet. But I knew I had to afford my bills. I still had to pay for things. So I was still kind of, okay, well, I'm making good money. I'm not having to stress. But once we had that conversation, I went to my parents and said, hey, here's the deal. I have a chance to do something real. Logan's not kidding. Wyatt's not kidding. This is going to be a thing. And I know if I'm on that team, I'm going to put my heart and soul on the line, and I'm going to put the effort in to make it into something, because you don't have that chance. And when growing up, you always hear all the old guys, man, take risks when you're young. And that was my risk. So my parents allowed me to ease up on my rent, and they knew I was going to be taking a pay cut. But it was the smartest decision I think I could have ever made.
I bet that is a very similar story that a lot of outfitters have. Like when you go to work in the hunting and fishing space and you're going to go be a guide, I'm sure, especially the young ones going out, like I'm sure a ton of them, like it's hard to even fathom like affording all the equipment that you need. Like it is a big expense to go out and do that. Or if you're going to go work for one, sometimes it can kind of be frowned upon because people think like the hunting and fishing is kind of like you're not going to make good money, or it's like kind of goofing around and not getting a serious career, but you've turned it into something like awesome, obviously, and into a legitimate career. And this is a legitimate business now. And I wanted to hear though, so you come in, you start working here. How has your role progressed here at the company, and how have you progressed as an individual at the company?
So we'll go over the role first. I started out just like anyone else would at a company that you're just trying to piece things together. I mean, we're very fortunate now. I mean, the office I'm in right now is about the size of our first office for about 6 guys. It was jam-packed, and we were running on as little fumes as possible. And at that point, when we first got into it, it wasn't about who's doing what, who's what, where. You're finding out who's good at what. And that's something that's in our business today that you understand with especially our leadership team is, a lot of people say don't work with your friends, but it works so much better whenever you understand that everyone has a role to play. We all have our, things that we're good at, and we have things that I'm not good at, right? There's a lot of things I'm not good at, right? And the things I'm good at, I still got to continue to learn. I think that's a very important step that we'll get into later. But it was a grind at first, just figuring out what we're good at and what we do. But at that point, you're wearing so many hats. Logan can attest to this. Everybody wore a minimum of 3 hats in all types of roles. You were not only the sales guy, but you're also the account manager. You're also, it's not what our account managers are today. But it was just figuring it out, right? Bootstrapping it at the beginning and figuring it out. That's really what it took. And then as it went bigger and bigger, and we started to get more guys, a little bit more office space. It was time to show out and prove my worth, prove that I wanted to, I'm competitive, right? I grew up in sports. I have a competitive nature. I wanted to be the guy. I wanted to be the guy in my role. And I wasn't going to let anything stop me from doing that. So I got my butt in the chair, out the chair, weekends. I mean, we would work 7 days a week, and we still sometimes do, right? That's coming up like now. So it wasn't about how much am I getting paid. It's about buying into the vision, right? And Logan did a fantastic job of giving me that vision. And beginning to buy into this vision. And if you don't have a vision going into it, I tell this to outfitters all the time. If you don't have the vision, you need to stop your tracks right then and there, right? You need to figure out what that clear alignment is. Because if you're not aligned as a team, it's chaos. And you'll see that with growing pains, right? And so as I progressed, I just started dialing up guys and trying to figure out where we fit in this market. We thought we were going to be like a marketplace only. And we tried new things. I got to experiment with a lot. But it just took the work, it just took the effort, right? It's moving forward is all that is. Don't look back, move forward, and learn from every mistake you've ever made, learn from the good times, the bad times, and the stagnant times. And so I kept doing that, had some other guys that were in my role as well. And I just knew that my vision was I wanted to be the guy that Logan and my team, you, Garrett, could rely on. I wanted to be that real old reliable. I want to be the guy that you could look to. You call me at 3 a.m. in the morning. All right, not even going to ask what, let's go. That's what it takes. And that's where I found like my piece, right, was being able to fight for that job. There's a lot of people that go into a job right out of college and they don't have the chance or the ability to fight to get to where they want to be. And so I took it and ran with it. And I still to this day try to be the best I can be.
So describe for everyone truly like what your day-to-day role is now as the company sits.
So my day-to-day role is, obviously have my sales team. We have the sportsman side of things where we're sportsmen go in, discover, and we sell and help outfitters sell their trips through the ads that we run for them. I do a lot of meetings. I do a lot of processes and procedures. I build out a lot of process docs based off of trial and error, and then talking with other people in the industry. But my personal day-to-day will be more with the outfitters, right? Talking with the outfitters, using everything I learned from selling for years to sportsmen and applying that to understanding how these outfitters are working. So now I get the privilege to talk to these outfitters, tell them about our software that we built ground up by outfitters, right? It's not just us from Silicon Valley or UT Austin. Here we go. We think we have everything figured out. This is what other businesses do. You can't do that. You got to understand who we're dealing with, right? Make it easy. So that's my day-to-day is cultivating relationships, helping people and their families get to the goals that they want at the most easiest way possible, and giving a lot of advice from what I've learned, but also taking in advice. It works both ways. We really say that we're a partnership, and that is so true. It's not just because we only do well if you do well. It's I'm in it too. I know your kids at this point, right? I know that they're about to go to first grade. Like I care about where you're going. That is the difference between us and anybody else is we have that opportunity to do that.
So you keep bringing up relationships and kind of keep touching on it, but I wanted to hear why, because I know in your sales process that's one of the most important things. And I think outfitters could start to, take some of this advice from you on this and starting to put it into play. But why is it so important that you build that relationship with them?
Most important thing is it's important because it's important to them. It's a big step. This is their dream, right? If somebody came talk to me about my dream, I'm going to be very hesitant. I got to know who you are. I want to know who they are. It's important because not only for our sportsmen to make sure that they're going with verified outfitters that do the right thing, they're going to get the job done. But it's really just, I don't care about selling you everything under the sun. I'm not a car salesman, right? Nothing against those guys, but it's a different type of selling. It's not a sell just to make a sell. Even my sales team, it's a sales team. It's not a let's fight for each other. If there's something that we need to get done, you do it, right? We'll talk about everything else later. You got to provide an experience for the customer to understand that you got their back. You're going to be in the trenches with them. And the worst thing you can do in a sale if you don't do consultative selling, which is what I like to do. I like to get to know you. I like to talk to you. I like to figure out what your goals are, where you want to go, and what you want to accomplish, right? Who is this for? What's your why? The worst thing you can do in sales is give them the straight pitch like you do to everyone else. And it's the same thing every time. It's not, the mold is guidelines in this industry. It's where are you at? Everyone's different. Like you can have a 5-star lodge and a 5-star lodge. They're completely different. They have totally different ICPs, different ideal customer profiles. And you got to understand what makes them different. A lot of these guys that go on expensive trips, they've seen it all. You're not just going to get them by saying, I have a 5-star lodge, right? It's who are you? This is relationship and entertainment business. Like, are they going to be joyful to want to go back and go into that blind with the same kid they were with last year? The only reason you get that with return clientele is who are you, right? So I want to know who you are. I want you to know who I am. And that to me is the most important thing you can do. And if you overlook that, you're not going to build a relationship. You're not going to have a lifetime value, a lifetime client. You're not going to have people that call you whenever they need help, and they're not going to trust you. It's all about building trust. I love when my guys call me and they're in the thick of it and they don't know what to do and they can't go talk to maybe one of their guides or their wife or whoever. They come talk to me and we set them straight. I shoot them straight. I don't give them any fluff. I talk to them just like if I've known them for 15 years. That's why it's important, because when things do inevitably hit the fan, how are we going to work through it? It's not, hey, here's a magic button. That's not how this works. It's, I'm going to be there right with you. We're going to figure it out. We're going to do what's right. We're not just going to charge you just to charge you. we're going to maybe hold things off, maybe reassess, figure out maybe there's a different strategy here. Maybe you could utilize your land for something else that gives you a little bit more income or revenue in the off season. I can't know any of that if I don't get to talk to you and get to know who you are.
So when you're talking about building these relationships, do you have any tips for starting to build that rapport with somebody, starting to build that trust, or how an outfitter could do something like that?
Yeah. So are you talking for like to a sportsman or just in general?
Just in general, how do you do it?
I get on here and I tell them straight up, I set expectations off the bat, right? By setting those expectations, they don't have to be cumbersome to understanding what's going on as far as, oh, is this guy going to screw me? Is he just like the last guy I talked to in software? There's a bad taste. There's a very big bad taste when we started. And that was what we wanted to stray away from, right? It's, hey, let's have a conversation. Let's not talk about GuideTech. Let's not talk about Mallard Bay. You and I are going to talk for the first 15 minutes. And we're going to talk real talk, right? Like, I'm going to get into your finances sometimes. I'm going to get to where you really are. I've had guys say, hey, give me a second, go into their truck because their wife's right there and or their guides are right there. And they know that they're in deeper or way in over their head than they really want people to know. But we're that outlet. We're the guys that are going to keep that confidential. We're going to be the guys that actually have to break down those barriers because it's lonely at the top, right? You can ask Logan, you can ask any owner, it is lonely at the top because you have to make sure that you're not letting that trickle down to your outfits, to your guides, right? They have to know that everything's going well because they need to be hyper focused on what they need to be doing. It's the only way you can move forward. I would say just sit them down, be straight with them. Honesty is your best thing you can do, and being blunt and just being like a normal person. I say it all the time. You're not going to call someone overseas. You're getting me, right? You're getting me. You're going to talk to me. You're going to talk to any of our guys here. It's not us delegating to other people. You're going to get the people that have been doing this for a long time now or a while now. And we're going to continue learning. And I want to bring you a part of that journey. I want you to continue learning. When I learn something new, I want to let you know. But yeah, I mean, it's really breaking down barriers. It's take the ego away. Hey man, I've dealt with plenty of guys just like you, but you're not going to be the same as them. So let me know what's different. Let me know what you're really in. What's your pickle?
No, that's cool. And honestly, like I've seen you develop into that, your sales skills and being able to pull out that information from people, just progressively just getting better and better at that. And then knowing what answers to give them because of the experience of going through so many different outfitters. But is there something that helped you get to that point where it's like, yes, it is relationship, it is consultative selling? And was there like a tool, a book, anything like that you like grabbed a hold of and it kind of directed you in that? Or was it more just boots on the ground?
I'd say a little both. Okay. Main
Hybrid.
thing is going to be hybrid, right? A lot of these guys are in this industry because we weren't the best school guys. We didn't like sitting in a classroom. We liked going out and doing what we wanted to do. And I was the same way. I was decent at it, but I didn't love it. So bootstrapping I think experience is the number one thing you could do. I'm so much more of a person in general than I was when we first started. I wouldn't even be comfortable talking about the way I'm talking right now if I didn't have the experience to back it up, right? And that's how it should be, right? You have to be genuine. You have to be genuine.
Yeah.
But the other part to it is I started reading books again. I used to read a lot of books in college and I didn't like it, right? Like I just did it just because I had to. Now I get to do it because I want to perfect my craft, but I also want to be able to teach the guys that I'm with and show by leadership and show even our outfitters like, hey, there is different ways to do this. There's better ways to do this. And I don't know everything, but every day I'm going to learn. But my biggest books, man, is I've had the opportunity to be with a lot of really great mentors. And they've always prescribed me books, right? That's my prescription every month is a book. And one is going to be Spin Selling. Spin Selling is a great book. But the first one is really customer success books, right? Even though it's not my department, it's something that you have to understand. That's what we're doing. I'm talking to you. If you're not in it for the customer and you're not in it for like being genuine, then you're not going to get anywhere. They're going to see right through that. You understand, a lot of these guys, they might not be like your book savvy PhD boys, but they can read a person faster than anyone else you could ever step. Like you step into a bar, they can read you real fast and they're going to see right through your BS. And if you're not genuine, you're going to get eaten alive. And I think that's what a lot of our even competitors lack at as well. So you got to be vulnerable. But spin selling, next one would be challenger sale. I just got a new book. It's the Jolt Effect, right? These are more selling tactics, but it's not a selling tactic as in like, how can I get the most sales under my belt just because I want to make a sale and have good numbers? You're not going to have a good product, and you're not going to have people be there. I tell people all the time that we don't care about, I'd rather you crawl before you walk before you run, right? That's so true. I'd rather you start here, get your toes wet, and then progress as you're ready. Okay. I don't want to just bombard you with a bunch of different things. That's why I have great account managers, right? They know when those next steps can be ready to hit. It does no good for us to put you in a hole and then you're gone in a year because you outbid yourself, right? You overextended yourself. So that's really what these books touch on, right? Is understanding how to talk to them, understand their needs. If you can understand someone's needs and solve their problem, that's what makes you good at sales. That's what makes you good at cultivating a relationship that's going to last 5 years, 10 years, and not just 1 or 2 and then they're gone.
I love that, because there's always such this like persona of like sales is like dirty. And it's probably from, and again, no shade, but the car dealership, like salesman, like sales can be seen as shady. But I think your approach and the approach that these books teaches is something that like an outfitter can like grab onto. Like you can get good at doing sales by caring about the success of this other person that's trying to become a client with you, or is interested in your services because you truly care about them. And like you said, you're setting expectations. You're like, you said crawl before you walk before you run, like all that kind of stuff. I love that. I love the relationships. I think outfitters could truly like just grab onto that and be like, hey, I'm not like some dirty car salesman.
Yeah.
I just truly care about you and having a good experience.
Yeah. And I have a great story for that, right? It happens more often than people think. Might be frustrating, but like I'll get a new guy that is not LLC'd, right? That's part of our vetting process, making sure your liability is there. Or guys that have been running an operation for 5 years and they haven't set up a LLC or S corp, E corp, right? I will let them. They have my time. Hey, we're not going to be able to move forward with you right now, but do you have anything for me that I'll just sit here? You got my time right now. Let's talk. What can I help you with? Where are you struggling at? I'm not even making a sale at that point. I know the sale's out the window. They're not going to be with us right now. But will they come back in about a year or 6 months when they do get everything properly set up based off of what we've talked of? That happens, right? That makes me feel better than anything else. Those are my favorite sales. I will literally sit in 45 minutes. That's your time allotted. Okay. Where are you at? What are we talking about? And I'm just helping them through. And I get guys that appreciate that more than anything. Those are the guys that need it the most. They don't understand. They don't have the privilege that we did to have mentors and get to grow up in an atmosphere like that, but they know that this is what they want to do. I want them to achieve their goals. And I want them to achieve their dreams. And so I will sit there, talk with them. And I had one guy talked with them here. Hey, man, I'm struggling. I'm in this area. Okay, well, hey, is there any resorts around your area? Is there anything that you can get to their system? Giving them different ideas. Oh, I haven't thought about that yet. Okay, let's start there. And then come back whenever you get this set up, because you want to protect your family, right? So make sure you have the right, liability in there, right? Make sure you have an LLC. So if something does happen, then your family's taken care of, right? Giving them all the insights that just protects themselves, right? Not just because I make a sale, it's because I want them to be protected and have a good foundation. They cleared the land, right? Like building a house. They cleared the land. They found the plot. We're the foundation. We're going to be there to set your processes, your procedures, make you scalable, organized. And then from there, guys can start putting up the housing work, right? Start putting up those 2x4s. That will go quick, but you need a nice solid foundation. That's where we set, and that's where we are. That's where GuideTech comes into fruition. That's where Mallard Bay is. We are the foundation that you can lean on and build a proper house on.
I just have to acknowledge the fact that I've been super quiet. I'm just in awe listening to both of you talk, mainly you, of course, Peyton, just to, hear what you guys have learned culminated into a hour-long podcast. And while I personally only have 15 minutes left, no matter how long you guys go. But a lot of these things I couldn't have even said better myself. And, I may have said some of these things here and there, but to hear it all pieced together and, what it's basically a framework for how we approach customers and really build our business, right? Off of this essentially way of doing things. It's just, I don't know, I'm grateful for that.
Yeah, definitely. And it's like I said earlier, it's been super cool, like just seeing Peyton, you progress as a professional in what you do, and it going from what I thought a salesperson was when I tried to run a business and I tried to do sales to now what you're doing. Like you talking about like just providing value to someone who's not ready to be sold. That is huge. That's like monumental. Those are the companies that like grow, succeed, have those relationships. And it's the people that have the relationships that win. And you've done an excellent job of setting that foundation for our company, because that is the foundation for our company, is having those relationships. It makes me think of like the value ladder, where if you think of that, I don't remember what it's called, but it's like it's first comes love, then comes marriage, then comes a baby, and the baby carriage. So you're giving them the first comes love. Like you're giving them the love up front. And then the marriage is getting on the GuideTech, and then all the great stuff after that. And so I truly think like you're that first step in that value ladder, where you're just truly there to care about them, build that relationship, hear what their goals are and how we're going to help them get there. But you were talking about like if they're not LLC. So we do have a vetting process that you walk through when you're going to go sell somebody. You know, a new lead comes in, someone's interested in GuideTech. In the past, people have like questioned on our listings on our Mallard Bay site, you know, like, hey, you know, there's this person on here and I don't really feel this like I should be next to them or anything like that. And so I want you to talk about our vetting process and what we do to kind of mitigate that and how it's changed over the past.
Yeah. Like any other company that's starting, you got to start somewhere. And that's probably where a lot of the first kind of that started, right? Where it's like, well, you got this guy on here. Well, at first you have to get people on just to even prove out your product and make sure it can work for others, right? So we did have to take on a lot of people at the beginning to make sure that we knew what we were doing. We made sure that we figured out who we were, because we were a totally different company than we were 2 years ago. I got guys that came up from our original time when we were just putting them on our platform and weren't happy because we didn't really understand who we were at that point. But we kept growing, we kept doing it, and that's what it took. But now fast forward to now where we do have a little bit more knowledge and understanding of where someone should be, where they shouldn't, what's right or wrong. And we're still learning that process. But my vetting part of it is the pre-vetting, right? We do have post-vetting. It's a relationship. It's a partnership. We're still vetting each other out of how you work with each other. Communication, that's huge. It's not just a set it, forget it, and you're done, right? You're not going to grow. So my pre-vetting is I'm going to look through all your, what you have on the internet. I can pull up a lot of cool things, but also the grapevine. And that brings back to the community of this industry. You start understanding who some people are. I can call at any given time anyone on my cell phone that's in this industry and say, hey, have you heard about these guys? How are they? And it's not just from the outfitters, right? Every outfitter at the end of the day wants to beat out their competition sometimes, right?
Right.
And so you have to take that with a grain of salt. That's where it gets very hairy in what we do, right? We can't just take one person's word for it just because this outfitter's upset with this other one because they're right down the road from each other, right? We can't play into that. We have to be totally, totally biased, right? We have to be like, we can't be biased, right? So what happens is, so what happens there is you have to take all sides. I'm a true believer in one, credit where credit's due, but two, there's always three sides to a story. Okay. So whenever I do hear something that has had some bad connotations on it, I'm going to go as deep as possible, as far as I can. I'm going to call people around that area. I'm going to call different outfitters. I'm going to call different sportsmen that may have gone with you. I'm going to call people that are in the industry that may have worked with you in the past, and figure out who you are as a person. Because if we don't meld well on the person side of things, and you're just out there just to take big pile pictures and just take the client out and they get your money and you don't care about the relationship or making sure their experience is up to notch, that's a big red flag for me. If the way we do things, we want to take care of our customer and care about them. If you're not doing that with yours, that's not the Mallard Bay way. Okay. Just plain and simple. And then another part is you got to be, have some kind of EIN number, like an S Corp, C Corp, LLC, one to protect your family, right? Anything happens in that business, they can now sue the business and not your family and put you guys in a very hard spot. It helps that scenario. But two, it just shows that you're really trying to do this. You're really trying to do this as a business. The best thing someone can say when they come on a meeting with me is not care about, I have the best decoys. I get decoys every year. You don't need that. What you need is to focus on the customer's experience. How are you different on that aspect? If you're a guide or a charter, I hate to tell you, but you should be pretty darn good at what you do as far as killing ducks, shooting deer, scouting, fishing. You should be pretty up to par on that already, right? So that's where most guys like to fixate on. That's not what we fixate on. That's why they're coming to us in the first place. They got that side of things. A lot of early on emerging outfitters is what we call them, is they have to bootstrap at the beginning, but there's stages in growing a business, and there's stages that you have to change in your business to get to that next level. So if you're an emerging outfitter, you've had to bootstrap to get those friends and families, get that book of clientele. But then there comes to a transition where you got to start being legit. You got to start worrying about the business side of things. And usually it's lonely at the top with those CEOs that are owning these operations, because it's all on them. And if you're guiding and still have a career, which is, by the way, the coolest thing I get to do in this job is get to see some guys that have careers that got to quit their day job and do this for an actual business. That's what we want to do, right? It takes a team, and it takes you letting go of your ego. Yes, you have to have that ego in front of your guys, right? Show that, everything's okay. But we know where you're at. We know that it's not always good, right? You're going to have some bad. And that's who you get to talk to, is me, about those things. And how can we make those where it takes the weight off your shoulders and say, hey, let's have a path. Let's have a plan. Let's get that vision back on track, because you've had the vision while you're bootstrapping. What's going to get you that next level, right? We don't even care about how much you're running. You could be $1 million operation, but you could be considered not a market shaper yet because the way you're doing things, right? The way that you're not having a big return clientele. I asked 3 questions, and this is where I'll stop here. I asked 3 questions in every demo. What did you gross last year? What did you gross? What are you projected to do this year? And what is your return clientele rate? And everyone, they would love to say, yeah, well, I'm going to probably do the same thing as I did last year, but man, my clientele rate, recurrent rate is like 95%. Most guys are real tickled to death about that. That is not a good flag for me, right? That is okay. What that shows me is you have a great clientele base, but you're not growing. Okay. So you have a good relationship with these guys. They're coming back year over year, but they're going to start weaning off. Or if you want to start getting to that more premium area, you're going to have to wean off some clients and start upping your prices. And you don't want to mess them up. You don't want to lose those guys, but you have to grow. You're going to have to lose some to win some. Okay. And same thing with GuideTech. Like, you're going to have to spend some to make some. And if you're not going through those growth planes, like if you're not growing, you're dying. And that is so true. And that's what we really try to get out of you is, why are you not growing? Right? What are the pitfalls? But fast forward, you get a guy that's like, man, I did 65,000 last year. I'm projected to do 120 this year. My clientele rate's about 55%. I love that guy because he is actively growing. He wants to turn this to a real thing. He's serious about it. That's the biggest thing, is, are you serious about this? Right? Are you going to do what it takes? That to me makes all the difference.
Definitely. See, one thing this is, completely off the cuff, but I want to hear your favorite success story from someone who came on, because you brought up that you've had people that go from working a day job or outside of season job, and then they get to change to being a full-time guide or outfitter. I want to hear your favorite one.
So I don't want to name any names. I'll give you one that is something that we're focused on right now as a company. And that is through us providing good leads to good outfitters that really can take it and do something with it. And there's an outfitter that, when they first came on, they were maybe pushing 6 digits, maybe. And fast forward 3 years of growth with us, they bought into it. They allowed us to really help them out, give them a platform to really extend what they're good at, and took our advice, and they worked at it though, right? We can't take all the credit. They worked at it. And now they're well over 6 digits. They're doing great. They are just absolutely killing their ads. That to me is better for me as a success story, because it shows that the product that we're giving to them is working for this outfit, right? Now they're able to hire more guys. The guys in his group are successful, and they're not going to stop. They're not stopping here. They grow every year, but they're doing everything to the T, right? And I'm really proud of those guys. That makes my heart warmer than anything else, is seeing them grow. But I will say that there's one in Texas, and man, they didn't even have a lodge. They have been honest with us for almost the start, and it was trying to get something to change their life themselves. It wasn't about their company at all. It was about them, their personal growth. And they tied that into growing to their business. And he has grown as a person, his outfits. He has some of the best guides out there. But it was a personal thing. It wasn't a business thing at that point. It was personal growth of who am I going to be? And we allowed him an easier way to do that and grow through it because he had everything organized and scalable. And fast forward, he's got a multi-million-dollar lodge. He was able to take care of his kids now. He's able to do the things he needs to do to be that person. We don't just look at the business side of things too. Yes, that's important. That's a big part of what we do. But we also care about who you are as a person. How are you going to grow your family? How are you going to protect your family? Those are the best success stories. But there is another one that he's a little kid. He's probably about 17 years old. And, a lot of those younger guys get a bad rap. And I will say, a lot of guys don't do it right. But the ones that do it right, they need a chance to prove to the older guys that, hey, they're legit. They're starting out just like you did 10 years ago, right? We're not all bad. He went from never, ever seeing a $14,000 booking. We gave him one $14,000 client, say, hey, look, we're going to trust you with this. We want you to grow. Let's see how this goes. He did it. And, he's had some rough times with us. We do have a strike program, but he turned it around. He did what he needed to do. And now this kid is able to, this is his career now. And it's the coolest thing right out of high school or right before college. He was one of those kids that didn't want to go to college. And that's okay. But he had the grit to do it. And he had the mindset to get better. And that guy really did get to make a career out of this. And it's really cool to see him. Every time I see him, it's like family now.
Hell yeah, man. Well, that's awesome. Well, I think that's a great spot to wrap up the podcast on, Peyton. I just appreciate you taking the time out of your day. I know you have guides that are itching to get in touch with you and be on demos, and again, just build those relationships with you, man. You've been an absolute asset to the company. And I will say, it's been awesome being in the marketing seat, taking these outfitters that we're talking to, communicating, sharing our story with. It makes my job easier when, I know they're going to be able to come in and get to build a relationship with you. You're going to sell them on what they need, not on what we want them to sign up for, but just truly what they need to sign up for. And that we have an operations team that's going to execute on that. And then a development team that's obviously crushing and building out new product all the time. And that's just truly one of my favorite parts about being part of this team. It's, family. It's y'all get to market, sell what we love, believe in, into the right people, but we have a team behind us that's absolutely crushing. And it's been awesome seeing you develop your team, develop your skills, honing those in. And it's been, just a blessing to be able to see. Peyton, though, so if an outfitter wants to talk to you, whether it's about, dude, I just need to get better at my sales process. Maybe they're already a client, or maybe it's just someone who is thinking about getting on GuideTech and want to get to know you and go through a demo with you. How do they do that?
A phone call away. All you got to do is either go to our GuideTech page, book a demo with me, get on the phone with me, get me on your calendar. I will be there. I don't care if it's rain or shine or on the weekends, I will be there for you. And that's the true mindset. Is I don't care what time it is. I don't care. I've had demos at 10:30 at night, staying in the office because that was the only time you could get to it. That's what we do. That's how they get to me. But go there, give us a call on mallardbay.com. Or email us in. You'll probably get to talk to this stellar kid named Halen Tilley. He is unbelievable. He's going to set you right. He's going to make sure that you're booked up and ready to go. Right? It's not me, it's him. But I will always be in that demo with you. And just let's talk. That's all it is. It could be have a lot of angst behind it. Oh, what am I going to talk about? Do I need to do this? Do I come into it with an open mind? That's all I need you to just come, be yourself. Tell me where you're at. The more honest you are, the more genuine you are with me, the better the conversation's going to go. There doesn't need to be angst. I'm there to help.
Well, Logan, you got any closing remarks, brother, before I wrap this one up?
Just grateful.
Yeah, there we go. All right, guys. Well, cool. Well, Peyton, again, thank you so much for getting on the GuideTech podcast with us, man, and everything that you do here at Mallard Bay. Everyone, if you're listening and you enjoyed this, please make sure to share it with anyone else. If you're an outfitter that's already with us and you have friends that own an outfit or a charter and they need advice with selling or they need to get on GuideTech, please make sure to share this with them and we'll get them taken care of. And until next time, I guess, guys, we'll see you on the GuideTech podcast.
Thanks for